Okay, my name is Vineet Johnson. I'm the CEO of IRegained. I have a huge trouble keeping my pace, so I guess I'll talk too much. They've told me I got 12 minutes, so hopefully I'll manage within that. My job today is to introduce the company called IRegained. The word IRegained stands for I as in the person and regained as in regaining some function. And when someone gets a stroke, a quick little intro to stroke, a part of the brain gets damaged. When that damage occurs, the part of the body that brain controls is lost. In other words, if the part of the brain that controls your hand is damaged after a stroke or a brain injury or a trauma, there's nothing wrong with your hand, it's just fine, but the connection from the brain to the hand is lost. So what we do is to work on improving the circuit around the damaged part so that the hand function can improve. Most of you would have known someone with a stroke, and you would also know that after that stroke, despite all the promises and things that you think would happen, they had to live with that disability to the rest of their lives. What IRegained wants to do is to change that. So here's the story of an individual, a Sudbury resident who's undergoing clinical validation trials with IRegained. We have a device called My Hand. It's a pun on words, but it means what it is. And what My Hand does is to help enable hand function recovery. And here's a lady who used the device for over 12 sessions so far, but up to 10 sessions, we've got a video of her. On the first one, you would notice she hardly can open her thumb, and she's unable to let go of that little piece of plastic in her hand. And by session 5, you can notice her thumb opens up. She's able to pick up a carrot.
Yeah, I got it.
Down, up. And by session 7, and squeeze your hand completely.
It's perfect.
Open completely. Squeeze completely. Lift your thumb up. Down.
Hey, look it.
Down.
Down.
And up.
And the flame went higher. More than last week. More.
She can now hold a fork. She can't use it yet. We will get there. So, as you can see, she went through a trauma, a life-changing event, and for many months, I think about 7 or 8 months, she had no hope. And we provided some hope there. And we are in the business of providing hope. Provide a solution where none exists at this point of time. So what is it that we do? We have a system that is different. The current system is someone gets a stroke, an ambulance comes, picks them up, takes them down to a hospital. If they are lucky, only if they are lucky, you get to go spend a lot of time in a rehab center, or if you got lots of money. And in both cases, eventually they're sent home, a place that they used to know extremely well, a very intimate location that they were pretty much theirs, but suddenly one that they cannot interact with. Because if you don't have your hand working, you cannot open a tap, you cannot put on a bra strap, you cannot put on a button, you cannot hold a coffee mug, you cannot eat. Someone else has to do every single thing for you, and that is very, very hard. What IRegained wants to do is to change that. Currently, the hand is completely ignored, and it takes quite a bit of time before the hand function is actually addressed. What IRegained wants to do is to address hand function problems right from the start at the hospital all the way down to the home so that they could have a chance at getting their hand function back at a price point that works for them. So how do we do it? It comes with hardcore science, a science of neuroplasticity. Neuro means brain, plasticity means change. So neuroplasticity is ability of the brain to change. For example, all of you have seen me today. You've never seen this brown guy who's waving his hand all over and keeps talking all the time. But when you leave here today, at least for a little bit of time, perhaps at least a couple days, you will still remember this guy. And that ability to remember something is a tiny little bit of a neuroplasticity. In our case, we put that information about the hand and how to improve the hand function into the brain using that physiology or that kind of a science. We want to do this by making the device portable and accessible. So when I say portable, it's small enough that they could take it home. You know, how many of you tried to play a different game or some game or try to learn a new game in your lifetime? Almost everybody, some game or the other. And to get to an amateur status, you had to play that game or practice at least 30 to 40 to 50 times a week. And the only way of doing that is if you have the device at home. It's also made accessible. In other words, it is made so simple and at a price point that people can actually afford it. The current devices in the market are cost upwards of 150 grand. In other words, only a hospital can have a device. One cannot take it home. If it's a hospital, you know our Canadian winters. It doesn't matter where you live. You know our Canadian winters. If it's someone who's disabled has to go to the hospital 3 to 5 times a week, you know how much it costs. Plus the physiotherapy services don't come cheap, at least $100 a session, and then additional charges that comes from that. So what IRegained wants to do is also to provide a device that is clinically effective, something that actually makes a difference in people's lives. So here's the latest prototype on the left end of the screen. I'm going to quickly show you the older prototype just to give you an idea of what it does. The individual puts their hand into the sockets. It looks like kind of like we're working on the hand, but essentially we're working on the brain. The lady that you saw, we never once did an exercise to move the thumb up. We only worked on exercise to move the thumb down. So we work on the circuits in the brain, not the hand. So we pick and choose what we want, and we have a program that clearly says what to do. It constantly makes the person make errors, as a result, make them get better and form new circuitry in the brain. We provide very targeted, simple feedback because the brain is damaged already. We do not want to occupy the brain space with lots of information. So how wide is this problem? It's a massive problem. Believe me, it is a massive problem. 60,000 people in Canada get a stroke each year, and 10 times that number are people who got stroke in previous years. That's 660,000. I did not include traumatic brain injuries, industrial injuries, war veterans. Huge numbers would come in. I'm restricting this number only to stroke here. You go down to the States, it's about 800,000 each year. 10 times that, 8 million people, injuries, strokes from previous years. And as you can see, the numbers are massive. You go to India and China, of course, they've got a massive population, 3.5 and 4 million people. Worldwide, it's 15 million people that get a stroke each year. We live in one of the best countries on the planet, and we do not have services for that. And we want to change that. And that's what IRegained stands for. So you saw the numbers. What does it mean in terms of dollars? It's a $4 billion market just in North America. If you take this and make it 10% penetration across the planet, that's a $30 billion market. It's pretty massive. So what is our competition? There are devices called passive devices, like little squeeze balls, which doesn't make any change in the brain. Then there are devices called active devices, which are like robotic devices, which cost upwards of $150,000, $200,000. And most of us in this room know what $150,000, $2,000 can buy, a house. And none of us have that kind of money to buy a simple device. What IRegained does, it provides the same benefits that you would get from a device that expensive at $4,000 a piece, Canadian dollars. We would have different options to buy the device. It could be leased, it could be rented, and of course, bought outright. The coolest part is it could be taken home and used at home. So why do you want to believe us? I've got a little bit of research here. I'm going to rush through the slide, but if you've got any questions, I'm happy to discuss more later. So on the left, right over here, is the healthy person. You see lots of little lines. If I take two electrodes, kind of like ECG electrodes, I put EMG electrodes on your muscle that controls these two fingers. That's the activity you would get in a normal person. So here's a person pre-stroke. There is very, very little activity, as you can see. After 16 or 18 one-hour sessions, their activity improved to that much. It's not close, it's not normal, but it's getting there. And that's what our system does. This is part of a study conducted in Thunder Bay, and it was done with about 9 patients over a duration of 6 weeks. So it also improved their muscle functions. And interestingly, the first set of data is all what researchers like to see. We also wanted to see what patients wanted. So we looked at an objective scale. Can they actually pour water from a jug into a glass? And that's the objective scale. We also wanted to know, what do they think? Can they peel an onion? Can they hold a coffee mug? Can they zip up their pants? And both were significant, indicating that not only did it improve hand function, it improved functional benefits, something that people actually care for. So our market research, we did a very small sample, but a very representative sample across US and Canada. And the sample told us very clearly, they love it, the market is not tapped, and they would really, really, really think it's a fantastic idea because the device can go home and patients can actually use it as many times as possible to get better. And the numbers were very simple. Out of the sample we had, which was about 34 clinicians, they indicated to us among their patients each year, 1,200 would buy and about 2,000 would lease the device. And that kind of gives you a clear idea of the power of the system. In terms of business, we get into the market at different stages. The first stage, we sell it business to business, kind of like a dentist selling stuff. The dentist will then the physiotherapist will then be requested to sell it to their clients. They will get an incentive from the device and a recurring client as well. Eventually, we'll get to a B2C model. A client can buy directly from us. Here's the team, a stellar team, as you can see. There's a phenomenal setup of people. There's Joel Liederman with 45 plus business years. And Ranjit and me go back about 30 years. The science comes from the two of us. Every time a rule is made, I guess it's to be broken. I was told to stop, so I'm going to take a tiny little bit of seconds. That's our revenue model. 5 years, we hit $50 million on a very, very, very conservative scale. If we sell 1,300 devices in year 1 to about 15,000 devices in year 5. Our current model has gone much higher. What we ask of the group here is to raise $250,000. We already have funds that came in the first round, which is $250,000, and grant money, about $500,000, is on its way, and another $250,000 from the city of Sudbury. We are looking at a bridge grant right now for $250,000. And what we plan to do is to generate new devices, conduct some trials, and get ready at our sales pipeline so that when we hit the market, all our devices are sold, and every investor and our patients say, "I regained." Thank you very much.